age 13, is when I heard Thelonious Monk, and that became like really pivotal because he seemed to make the piano, even though I've been studying it, quote unquote, studying it for 6 years, 7 years, he made the piano feel like I didn't know anything about it because I couldn't get those sounds out of the piano. Brahms, Mozart, Bach, all that, okay, but what Monk is playing, how come I can't find that sound? And that, from that point on, no one ever had to tell me to practice, you know. It was the best resource I could ever have was music, just diving into music, diving into the history of it. And so, you know, from then on, I was to a degree, I was saved. You know?
Mm. I would add to that. At listening to you talk, I remember that feeling too, as a kid, where, you know, you take a class, math or something, you'd have a problem, you could solve the problem and get the correct answer, but it was through music that there was never a correct answer. You could just keep pushing yourself constantly, and it was a platform for a type of self-discovery that other subjects didn't provide for me. So like you, no one ever had to tell me to practice. It was all day as much as I possibly could.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What's up, King?
Amen. All right. And here we are. My name is Junius Williams. I'm your host on Everything's Political podcast. And we got a real special show for you today. First of all, look at our new surroundings. This is Express Newark. Newark, New Jersey, Rutgers University, Newark. I'm telling you, if you ain't been here, you ain't been nowhere. My guest, I don't want to even take a chance on how I'm going to introduce them. I just want you to know who they are. And so I wrote some things down. It's pulling hen's teeth about these guys because they kind of modest. As musicians are. But as you know, we're talking about the power of music in this series. This is series 6, and this is going to be more on that, toward that power, and you're gonna see what the power of music has presented just from these two young men that I'm talking to. First of all, Stefon Harris, co-director of Express Newark and tenured professor here at Rutgers University. 4-time Grammy nominee, Doris Duke Artist Award winner, and creator of the musical app called Harmony Cloud, which we're going to get into in a little bit. My friend.
It is such a pleasure to be here with you as always.
Thank you, sir. And also, having known him as long, but I have to tell you, understated is another word. This is Jason Moran, pianist, artist, educator. He's a MacArthur Fellow. He's a former director of jazz at the Kennedy Center. And he's on the faculty, the New England Conservatory in Boston. Now, one of those things that I said about these two gentlemen, doesn't say enough about them. You're going to hear them playing a little bit. But I'm just glad to have you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you, brother.
All right. I'm not even going to tell how we met. But I might slip it in there. So let's start with Stefon. Stefon Harris is a vibe player, but he also plays the piano, as I have just seen.
Not next to this guy.
No. He's the man.
He's a piano player.
He's the man. Well, that's why we got him on piano and you on
Exactly.
vibe today, not vice versa. So, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from upstate New York, from Albany, which was a fantastic place to grow up. There wasn't a lot of jazz. Actually, I'm not sure if there was any jazz up there, but there was a lot of great classical music. And my mother is a Pentecostal minister, so I grew up in the Black church. So I had fantastic exposure to the blues, art, soul, just all the things that I needed to nurture my soul.
And you told me about your grandfather, Peewee Harris.
That's right. My grandfather, Peewee Harris, he's one of the first African-American DJs to run a radio station in the United States. He booked the Chitlin Circuit. People like Sam Cooke would come by his house and hang out. He booked John Coltrane, James Brown. So there's something that's in the blood that I didn't even know a lot about as a child, but I felt it for sure.
I don't know how you did all up there in that cold weather.
It's the music to keep you warm.
Refugees. Okay, so as you know, we're talking about the impact of music, the power of music. Tell us about your musical history. How did you get introduced to playing music, and what did you start on?
Well, you know, it's kind of random in some ways. We moved into an apartment, and someone left an old beat-up piano behind in the apartment, and inside of the bench of the piano were a couple of books for kids. And I was about 6 years old, and I would take the books out, and I saw there was a little arrow pointing to the white note at the bottom of the two black ones, and it said it was C. And I just kept picking at it and picking, and I ended up teaching myself how to read music, and I started with piano, no lessons or anything. But by the time I went to elementary school, I could already read music, so I ended up playing piano for the citywide chorus. And then because I could read music, the teachers just kept giving me instruments. So I played the clarinet, I played the sousaphone, the trombone and marching band. I played the string bass and orchestra. So I played basically all the band instruments. I think I played like 25 instruments by the time I graduated high school. So my love of music was in me. I just couldn't get enough of it, for sure.
How did that make your mother feel?
Drive her crazy with all that music in the house. Yeah. No, I mean, I think she was always proud of me. But once I did try to learn a little bit about jazz, that religious thing did kick in, the thing about the blues and jazz and not necessarily being religious music. So there was a little bit of a conflict there. But I think her love and support of me always came through, and she always encouraged me to keep dreaming big.
And what's your backstory, Jason?
I went to a magnet school, elementary school, where everybody had to play an instrument.
And where was it?
It's in Houston, Texas, and it was called McGregor Elementary, and that meant you had a lot of unhappy people playing instruments.
Required, right?
Man, fuck this trumpet. Nah. I'm joking. But I would play violin. It was the first instrument. And then my mother put my brothers and I in lessons, Suzuki lessons. And it was okay to practice a thing. I think maybe that I felt my mother and father really wanted us to think about what the effect of practicing something. And you should do it daily, and we had to grade ourselves on how well we did in our practicing. Like we had to good, excellent, or mediocre. Like we really had to grade ourselves on this chart that my mother made. And so it kind of made practicing a bit of a chore. I didn't like it at all. And up until age 13 is when I heard Thelonious Monk, and that became like really pivotal, because he seemed to make the piano, even though I've been studying it, quote unquote, studying it for 7 years, he made the piano feel like I didn't know anything about it, because I couldn't get those sounds out of the piano. Brahms, Mozart, Bach, all that, okay, but what Monk is playing, how come I can't find that sound? And that, from that point on, no one ever had to tell me to practice, It was the best resource I could ever have was music. Just diving into music, diving into the history of it. And so, from then on, I was to a degree, I was saved.
I would add to that. At listening to you talk, I remember that feeling too, as a kid, where, you take a class, math or something, you'd have a problem, you could solve the problem and get the correct answer, but it was through music that there was never a correct answer. You could just keep pushing yourself constantly, and it was a platform for a type of self-discovery that other subjects didn't provide for me. So like you, no one ever had to tell me to practice. It was all day as much as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And what did just the act of practice, how did that add to your life going forward?
Well, you do get better. if you practice,
Right.
you know, but you'll never be perfect, you know? And so so it's kind of like a goal you'll never meet, but you can get closer to it. The thing that I think most of us practice is actually when we then meet each other in the rehearsal together with the thing we practiced on our own. What does it sound like when it all comes together? And maybe that's the most important part about being kind of in solitary when you practice, is when you become a community, you better have your thing that you're ready to say, right? You got to have that. Like, don't be like, don't stumble now. Like, and because this music is a community music, it relies on community, it takes community. The health of it is dependent on the community that listens to it, you know? That then you know you're a citizen, really. But the more you practice and start to understand, like, maybe the things you want to improve on, you're able to say that to yourself, you know, and then you work on that, then that becomes a life skill, you know. It goes definitely far beyond music.
Yeah, and there's a balance too, or there's a distinction, I should say. Some people go into a practice room and they play, which is not the same as practicing. So I think as a child, I just loved playing and just making music as much as I could. It actually wasn't until I started wrestling that I discovered the value of practicing. So wrestling is a one-to-one sport. I was a captain of the wrestling team, right? So I loved wrestling, but that's you and your opponent out there. And so you get your butt kicked a couple of times, it's no one else's fault. It comes a question of what are you going to do about it? Are you going to run that extra mile? Are you going to do those extra push-ups? You're going to spend a little bit more time in the gym. So once I started to become an athlete, I started to recognize the value of just doing the work. It's not like you're wrestling by yourself when you're practicing. You are putting in the work necessary to build the skills so that you can react when you're trying to create with other people. So it was really participating in sports that I think really helped me learn how to practice and focus as a musician. And to this day, I would say I'm a pretty disciplined person, and I've learned the process of practicing is really meditative for me at this point. It's not work. I love it because there's a vision. I know where I'm trying to go, and every day that I practice, I recognize that I'm one step closer, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. So it's not a labor at all.
And of course, that's with music, not with wrestling.
No, I gave up the wrestling. My 16-year-old could kick my butt now, so I'm gonna leave that alone.
I know that feeling.
I mean, how is it for you, like, for practicing law? Like, where's the practice for you?
Well, it started with the music, because my father told me, if you want to go out and play basketball, football, or baseball, depending upon the season. Those were the three sports that you played in Richmond, Virginia at that time. Tennis came later. But he said, if you want to go out, you got to practice for 30 minutes a day. My brother and I, we wrestled with that, and we sat in and we did it, and we got better at it. And sometimes we just kept practicing until it was too dark and you couldn't go out and play, but you didn't miss it because you were getting better. So the same thing with law. If you put your mind to it, you go out and read that extra case. You go out and find that extra case. You talk to somebody who's been doing it for a while. And then you begin to see that something you didn't learn in law school, you learned the law in law school, but you learn how to, quote unquote, practice law by doing that extra mile. And so it was the discipline. It was the discipline that I brought with me. I brought with me on that. And that came definitely from music. The instrument that I played the most was E-flat alto saxophone. Went to the All-State Band, but I also played something else. So then I started practicing that. So that by that time, the day was over, because I was enjoying playing music. But at one point, you guys realized that you were super good. When did that happen? When did you decide that music was going to be what you were going to dedicate your life to?
Wow. Well, it's funny. I think of music as it's something I was exposed to early on, but I feel like it was a pathway to unlock other types of potentials that lived within me. So it was clear because when I first started taking private lessons, I think I was in 7th grade, and a year later, I won a concerto competition with an orchestra. So I learned really, really quickly. I ended up doing a European tour, but I got a chance to study with a real genius named Richard Al Bagley. So I knew that I had some talent, especially for classical music, ended up getting scholarships, full scholarships to all the schools I applied for. But again, I think all of that was just what I was exposed to. Now, as the decades went on, I started to realize that there were so many incredible, valuable lessons about manhood, right? About how to be a kind human being, how to be in community with others. These messages are embedded in the DNA of the art form itself. So as I started to learn more about the music, I became increasingly more concerned about my relationship to others and how I empowered others or didn't. So for me these days, I love music. I still play music, but it's not. I wouldn't define myself only as a musician at this point.
Mm-hmm. I like hearing that part about as we went to college together, Manhattan School of Music, and so we know both of what it was like in those early days, like the things we had as our goal, you know, the vision that we were on Blue Note Records together. Believe me, for most people, that's enough.
Right.
Stop. You made it to Blue Note, you know what I mean? And we were there, you know, as young artists, as young people, younger people. But I think, like in Houston, I think the thing was, I always thought, you know, the distinction was like, could you make a living from it? And I was unsure about how an artist has a lifestyle. How do you raise a family? My parents are not artists in that way. And that was a little bit frightening. And, but by the time I got to Manhattan School of Music, being around a community of people who were just as crazy as I was, meaning they were just as, enthusiastic about the adventure that music was leading them on without knowing how it was going to turn out. Mm-hmm. And I'd say in America, that's very rare that that's presented as an option for a young person. Like, nah, just go for it. What? Like, people are looking for jobs and healthcare and 401k and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, we were just looking for sound. And the validation sometimes came from the gig, sometimes it came from the pay, but it really came from the community. Mm-hmm. So you knew you were a professional if somebody better than you said, yeah, you sound all right tonight. Then you were a professional. It wasn't because you got paid $3,000. Right. It was like, nah, somebody who you respected really kind of gave you space and then said, all right, man, you improved, you know? Or they gave you some criticism that helped you become better. And those are the moments that for me, like, started to turn like, oh, okay, you know what, this is what maybe my life is gonna be like. Mm-hmm. And I'm up for it.
That reminds me, like, I often tell students that it's important to protect your love of music from commerce. Like, that love and joy for music that I had as a little kid, that I had in college, I still have that to this day. Mm-hmm. Every day when I wake up, I go to the piano and I'm excited to learn something. Even through the pandemic, I lost close friends like a lot of us did. It was a very difficult period, but I gotta say, I still woke up every day, went to that piano, and was filled with joy and gratitude as a result of having the opportunity to be in a creative art form like this. Right. So it's something that is transformative. It doesn't matter whether you want to become a musician or not. That's not the point at all. I think just people having the opportunity to be present, to be still, and to be deeply steeped in the science of empathy and listening is an incredible experience that I want for everyone. That's why I love being a teacher.
When did the blues meet you?
It met me pretty clearly. My father's cousin is named Tony Lorenz, and they lived in Chicago, so they had a Louisiana crew that went up to Chicago, and he and his brother played in Albert King's band. And when Albert King would come to Houston, they'd come by the house, drink all the vodka in the freezer, and then go to the piano and play some shit. And often when he sat down at the piano, I was like, yo, Tony, when he sits at the piano, he's having fun. Like, he is like in it. And I was like, why don't I feel like that? It was something I was aspiring towards. And that's when I met the blues. It was like, okay, so he plays with who? Albert King? And then you start listening to Albert King, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is what this sounds like. This is the sound, this is the kind of music all my family likes. They might like jazz too, but I wasn't listening to jazz yet. And so the blues kind of came, the blues was in the family. And these musicians in my family who lived in Chicago, to me, they were the ones who were making the living playing the music, and they were traveling and they had crazy stories and they were fun people. And I thought, yo, he's my idol. I want to be like Tony. So in my life, that's when the blues arrived. It was like via Tony Lorenz and his brother Mike Lorenz, and them playing with Albert King on the road.
Now, some of the people who are watching or listening to this may not know even what the blues is these days. So could you just give us a little illustration?
I'm gonna try. This is rough, yo, because you really should just go play a John Lee Hooker record. Right? Just saying.
Blues by Jason Moran.
I'm gonna play an old John.
And illustration. I want you to take us through those chords first.
No, yeah. Okay, so I'll mark it out.
Mark it, yeah. That's
I'll mark
what I
it in a
want you
way
to mark those chords.
That is only a version, and maybe it'll sound kind of familiar. Mark it for you? Okay. All right, it's all right.
You forgot. I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right.
Apologies.
That's all right.
One. The blues is about the one. And the one is the root. And the thing that makes blues, I'd say, one of the aspects that makes it the most profound and the most humbling is you have to face yourself over and over. You can't hide. It doesn't shift. It says, this is the one. This is the one, and this is the one. You got to come back home over and over. So you kind of got to look in the mirror. So this is one. I can go to the 4. I can go to the 5. That's like the top of the mountain before I roll back down. Now I'm back home, right? It's only home. I mean, you have to circle around home. And because of the form that I just played maybe it's a 12-bar form, you always are coming back home. And you never act like home don't exist. And that's what makes it, it's what makes it not taught in conservatories. And it makes it the most challenging to play because you have to face yourself. And it's why those musicians who we mentioned earlier, like Albert King or Big Mama Thornton, any of them people, they know how to talk about home and they tell you about yours too. But they're not afraid to share it. So that's what makes it maybe the most humbling of forms of music.
I never heard it put like that.
Sure.
So tell us about your blues, your first blues introduction.
So my first interaction with the blues would have been in church because my mom's a Pentecostal minister. So my first impression of the function and the value of the blues was watching someone stand up to testify.
Yeah.
Just to say, maybe she said, listen, my brother's not doing well. 1 week, right? Come back a week later, I just want to let you know he's all right. Bam, and a chord would just come in out of nowhere. Nobody knows what the key is. And then Sister Johnson would just keep telling that story. And he's all right because of God. And all of a sudden she would start to use pitch and the chords would start to change. So I started to realize the purpose of the blues is really storytelling. It's not so much driven by form. It's about telling something, a story that is deeply connected to you as an individual, to your experience, and the music is there to amplify the emotional depth of the story. It's not for someone to sit and watch you because you're special at a vibraphone or something like that. It's really your job is to be of service to amplify that story so that all of us can be seen and heard. So my connection to the blues was always about phrasing first. I didn't grow up playing jazz or any music closely related to jazz, but that sense of phrasing, I think, is what made me successful at classical music. Because most of classical music is primarily driven by phrasing, more so than rhythm. So ironically, I think my foundation in the church actually made me a really good classical musician. A lot of people wouldn't make that connection, but that's what helped me. I could always understand and feel the magic in a melody when I was just a kid.
Now, can you demonstrate that church story on the vibraphone?
I'll see what I can do.
See what you can do, man.
I'm gonna pick up on what Jason said.
All right.
We're all on the same page here, that's for sure. So Jason was talking about how you have to start from home. So for me, when I think about the church, it's almost like when someone was speaking, they weren't thinking about rhythm. It's as if you could just take what it is that you're saying and you could turn it into melody. You could say something like this. Anything that I say, boo-da-la-da-da-da, I can turn into music. Ba-do-da, boo-do-da-da. But I'm gonna start home and I can walk away from home, but I gotta go back home. I could walk a little further. I can go downstairs for a second. I can go all the way up here. But the whole time I'm just saying, ha da ha do ah ya, hu do 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 da da la. Basically, I'm saying hoo do 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 do. That's that call and response.
Now, that was beautiful. Don't go. While you up there. Now, both of you talked in terms of just those 4 chords. The first chord, give me a first chord. No, just the first note. There you go. The 4th chord is with that 1 note. And then the 5th chord, and back to home. All right, now, that's the structure of the blues. These guys are so fluent with the jazz and with the blues, they just went on to blah, 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 blah. And that's what you gotta understand. You can't just stay in one place, and that's what the jazz musician did. They flexed, right?
I hear that.
So, tell us about those in-between notes that you were playing.
Yeah, so part of what's fascinating with the blues is it's as if you have people who are, you know, you're coming from field hollers, right? You're coming from spirituals, you're coming from moans, but then you're playing these traditional Western instruments. It's almost like we're trying to find ways to play in between the notes. There's all types of things that I have to do here where if instead of just going for this note, maybe I want to feel like it's bending up to it. So I have to do tricks like, so I'm trying to find ways to make this thing sound more human, right? The instrument is almost a burden in a lot of ways. Like I can feel exactly the way I want to play. I can feel exactly what's in my heart. And then I gotta practice and figure out ways to make this thing sing the story that's deeply embedded in my heart. It's not an easy thing. You were asking about practicing earlier. I think that's what's at the heart of practicing. I don't think I answered your question though.
How you choose the notes?
Oh, how do I choose the notes? So, all right, so in terms of jazz, so if you think about these 3 chords you're talking about, If I play the first chord, let's say it has 3 notes in it, right? And then I go to the 4 chord, which is also going to have 3 notes in it. And I go back to the 1. And then I go to the top of the mountain, like Jason said. Maybe I go down 1, I go down another 1. I think what happened once you started to have jazz, you started to have more embellishments. So instead of doing something like, maybe I'll go, I went above the note and walk back down to it. Maybe I go above it, and then I'll go below it and walk back to it. So I'm trying to get to this note, but I'll go. Instead of going right to the 1, I can go below it and above it. Right, so I think jazz, we just started to add some slipping and sliding to it. And I also think that a big distinction between jazz and early blues is really centered on the individual and their story that they're sharing, whereas jazz is really happening in real time in community. So most of what I know I spend most of my time doing is I spend most of my time working on my ear so that I'm in a position to react to what's happening around me. So while my story is important, where my story sits in relationship to everyone else on the bandstand is equally important. So those are some subtle distinctions, I think, between blues and jazz.
Now you see why these guys are such great teachers as well. That was both fantastic demonstrations. Now I want you to demonstrate one more thing. This is something that you probably don't realize comes from the blues constantly, and you hear it in so many music. Talk to us about the dominant 7th, and give me a dominant 7th progression, please, so the people out there can know what they've been listening to and know what to call it. When you go to church this Sunday, you can say, hey, that's a dominant 7th.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Jason to help me out with this.
All
So most chords, when we start to think of them, in their most pure form, they're called triads. They just have 3 notes, which doesn't have a lot of tension. Blues needs a little bit more tension. So if you add 1 more note above it, if I'm going up the scale, it would be this pretty note, which doesn't have a lot of tension, right? The blues takes this note right here and goes down 1, which gives it, that's called a dominant 7. And most of the times in Western harmony, they're gonna say you can't sit on a dominant 7. A dominant 7 wants to go somewhere, but the blues lives in that space of tension.
That's
So
right.
we actually take that dominant 7 and we're fine with it. If he plays just that, that didn't need to go anywhere.
Here comes Junius.
Come on, get some. Yes, yes.
Hey,
Sound like the blues to me.
that's the blues. Well, I would love to just keep on playing with you guys. I would love to keep on talking to you, but time is short when you're doing a podcast. You got to go see these guys. Anytime you hear that Jason Moran is in town, or anytime you see that Stefon Harris is in town or anywhere near, or go by their records like somebody suggested. But I want to just talk to one thing that we didn't get on, that Stefon has taken it another step further. That's the academic in him. He's been working for a long time on an app. So if you want to go and learn how to play this music, tell us about your app. What's it called and what are you doing with it?
Well, the app is called Harmony Cloud. And part of the aspiration, part of my big dream is really about finding a way to empower others. I've been examining for quite a while what it means to be an artist. I think sometimes people may want me to be on stage and view me as an artist on the stage, but I've accepted the idea that artistry can live in the space of being of service to other people. So I have a passion for playing, but I have a deep, deep passion for solving problems so that I can help other people. Mm-hmm. So years ago, I was doing an ear training class where you're teaching people to hear the difference between chords. And some of my students were so excited, and they would say, oh, every time we come to class, we get better. How do we practice this on our own? And I would say, well, you know, we're a community. You have to get together with one another in a practice room and test each other. And I just felt like that wasn't a good enough answer. And I started to explore the idea of what if I could sort of download what's in my head, the way that I'm playing chords, the way that I'm improvising. Can I teach software to actually be able to improvise chords so that people can challenge themselves on their own? So many, many years later, I just released this app a month ago. It has over 700 chords in it, all the 13s and sharp 9s, probably 95% of the chords in Western harmony. This algorithm can actually improvise. So now someone can actually be at home alone and actually practice vulnerability, right? If you're playing by yourself, you know everything that you're playing. But all of a sudden, there's this other entity that's in the room that can throw you surprises, that you can feel confident practicing with. Right now, when you come on the bandstand, no matter what's happening, you've already gotten used to the space of saying, look, I don't know what's going to happen, and that's a good thing, but I'm ready to take the blessings that other people are offering me and see what I can do with it, what I can do to actually contribute. So that was kind of the motivation behind Harmony Cloud. But I would tell you, even from the bigger picture, part of what I felt in academia was this idea of, like, it's like they let the music into the academy, but they didn't let the people in. You understand? It was like he's looking at all these scales and chords from a Western music perspective, but all of this stuff about the feeling of the blues and testifying, none of that was really taught. And so part of my ambition as an educator is to figure out a way to make sure that a lot of those core cultural values are included in the process of sharing this music with others. So for me, growing up in the church, watching people stand up and testify and watch musicians who could just come in at any moment and be of service, it was very clear to me you had to work on your ear. So part of what motivates me is to make sure that that core cultural value of empathy, of listening, of humility, and being focused on the empowerment of others is included in what we're teaching young people moving forward.
It's incredible.
Stefon Harris, my brother Jason Moran, and I'm Junius Williams. This has been a great, great service, as you said, toward the understanding of how music can empower you to be somebody, but also to move mountains. Move mountains, because that's what this music has done. As we go further and further into this series, we're going to see some more examples of that. So I want to thank you all, and if you don't do anything else, do one thing. Be political. Go somewhere and just be political. One more thing. If you got some time, listen, go buy this app. Don't think you don't know what you can do with it, because until you're going to get it, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. And when you sit down and you practice whatever preferred instrument that you have, once you learn the basic things you got to learn the keys on the instrument, but this is going to take you to the next step further. And I assure you it's going to be a whole lot of enjoyment. So I'm going to try this again. We come to the end of our program. Thank you, guys.
Tag. That's the tag, the coda,
Tag,
right?
yeah.
That's the coda, right?
Yes, sir. Much
All
respect,
right.
brother.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Such
sir.
a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Such a
Yes,
pleasure.
sir.
Everything's Political Podcast is sponsored by the Center for Education and Juvenile Justice and supported by the Terrell Foundation, PSEG Foundation, and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and listeners like you. It is produced by me, Junius Williams, and Dreamplay Media. Everything's Political Podcast is recorded in Newark, New Jersey. And our theme music is by Anthony Ant Jackson. Check out earlier episodes and subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. See you next time, and remember, stay political.